I've just returned from a very successful photo tour of the northeast of England, based at Newcastle upon Tyne in the city centre, not far from the central railway station, which in itself is a magnificent piece of architecture. And that is what I was there for, the architecture of the area. So I visited, for example, the Anglican Cathedral and the castle. I went further afield to Seaton, Delaval Hall, a National Trust property, also to Tynemouth, there's a railway station there, incidentally. The architecture is amazing, as well as the castle and the priory, and also I took a walk along the coast from the South Shields to Suter Lighthouse. All these things are planned in advance. Even the prices, the times of the trains which I plan on a sheet of paper like this. So enough of me, of the waffle, let's get on with the programme, shall we? There are not many train journeys in the UK that can better the western approach to Newcastle Central. The line from London crosses the River Tyne on the King Edward VII Bridge, providing an arresting prelude to the station, built on a curve and designed by local architect John Dobson in 1848. There have been changes to the original design, but the threat of demolition in the 1970s was avoided. However, the castle, dating from the 12th and 13th centuries, was cut in two by the railway at the eastern approach, the Black Gate now separated from its keep, which are the only parts of the castle remaining today. The keep can also be seen from the platform. East of the station, the line to Sunderland crosses the Tyne via the High Level Bridge, passing through Gateshead, now home to the Glasshouse International Centre for Music, formerly known as the Sage. Across the road at the junction of Westgate Road and Neville Street is a statue honouring the father of railways, George Stephenson. Designed by John Graham Love, it was unveiled in 1862. The surrounding figures represent a blacksmith, a miner with a safety lamp, a plate layer and a locomotive engineer. At St Nicholas Cathedral, I was confined to the choir, as a school orchestra were rehearsing for a concert in the nave, so I had music while I worked. Reference books about the architecture of the church favour the choir, and it was certainly impressive, if somewhat dark. I had held the OM-5 and 12-45 Pro lens at 200 ISO, but quite a bit of work was executed in post-production with Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop. Now these are adjusted JPEGs derived from raw images. See my programs about photographing architecture for further information. The Tyne and Wear Metro runs underneath the city centre, and this statue, one of three figures named Floating Man, is near the entrance to Central Station in Granger Street. Opened in August 1980, Outside the city centre, it joins an overground route. I enjoyed a ride to South Shields on one of the new trains, which crossed the Tyne on the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge before continuing to Gateshead and Jarrow. Proceeding through the town centre to the seafront, I walked the newly named King Charles III England Coast Path, a long-distance trail around England, but I only went as far as the Ceuta Lighthouse before returning on the bus. The coastline features stacks and natural arches and is known as the Leas. The Ceuta Lighthouse, the first in the UK designed and built to be lit by electricity, is owned by the National Trust and can be visited. Back at South Shields, now at South Haven Beach, the view northwards include Tynemouth, our next stop at the estuary and gateway of the River Tyne. In its heyday, Tynemouth was a popular weekend seaside retreat for working classes, and when you arrived by train you made an entrance, greeted by an imposing station, its Victorian architecture preserved today, and just as welcoming for visitors arriving on a metro service. My footsteps took me through the town centre to the seafront and castle. It was evening, the moody light making up for the disappointment that the castle and priory were now closed. Famous people of the area seem to have their own pedestal, and Vice Admiral Lord Cuthbert Collingwood, born in Newcastle, was noted for being second in command to Admiral Lord Nelson at the Battle of Trafalgar. His monument overlooks the estuary of the Tyne, and you may be lucky to see one of the ferries, this one probably heading for Amsterdam. Unfortunately, Newcastle's iconic Tyne Bridge was being restored, so I have sneaked in an earlier photograph. Otherwise, most images were taken with the OM system OM-5 and 12-45 Pro lens, as well as the Seaton Delaval Hall, which has its own program. See link at the end of this program. Soon it was time to return home. A trip made successful by careful planning and even a few prayers for good weather. Not forgetting a sun dance.